Our next seam is the French seam, which is a self-enclosed seam, and it looks really beautifully finished, both from the front side, the outer side, and from the inside. Let's have a look how we do this one. All right, I've got both my right sides. Instead of having the right sides of the fabric facing, like we do with a normal seam, we're actually going to start the opposite way, because this seam is sewn twice. So we're going to face the wrong sides of the fabric together, and then using maybe a seam allowance of about 1 centimeter. We're going to do the same thing again. We're going to stitch our regular seam first, the wrong sides together, so now if you have a look at the seam, it actually looks wrong, because we've got, if this was the outside of our item, we have this seam showing here. So what we want to do is fold it over and sew it again. So the first thing I want to do is to actually give it a press. As you sew, you will always be doing a lot of pressing, but just consider it part of the process. It can be quite relaxing, actually. So the reason I've pressed this open is that, again, it flattens the seam from this side, so it makes it look really nice. So the next thing I want to do is fold this over again. If you had a big seam, you could just use a seam allowance of 1.5 that was larger, but it would give you a total seam allowance of 2.5 centimeters. So what we normally do is we're going to go and now trim the seam allowance down to about 3 millimeters. So just very close and parallel to your seam, without obviously cutting your seam that you've sewn. Now, put the right sides together and make sure that your seam is right on the outside, like this, so it's not rolled this way or that. And having pre-pressed the seams will make it easier to have the seam right on the edge. Now, if you found it was a bit slippery fabric, you found it really hard to get it in place, you could also use a chopstick or knitting needle if you're a knitter, and just guide the chopstick along your seam, holding it and scraping along. Then give it a press, and it allows you to have the seam lying perfectly flat. Now it's time to sew the seam again to make it a self-enclosed seam. This time I'm using a smaller seam allowance. You could use 0.5 centimeter depending on how much you've cut off, or you could use 1 centimeter again. I backstitch again at the beginning and end to secure the seam. Stitching here. And now you can see this is the wrong side of my fabric. You don't have any seam allowance that you need to finish. All the raw edges are enclosed, so it makes it very durable and strong and really quite beautiful. And all I want to do is just give it another press from the other side, so it lies flat. And you can see it looks just lovely from this side, just like a normal seam. but you also have that lovely finish on the other side. Now, French seams are fantastic for garments that are quite delicate as well, so where the fabric frays quite easily and is hard to finish, but also for see-through type of fabrics like chiffon, for example, where you really don't want to see any raw edges or any seam allowances. So this is a good one to have in your repertoire.